Hello there. Yesterday I was playing the round 4 of a Lone Wolf tournament. I played as black, and I wanted to share this game with you with my short analysis and insights of the game. So let's start right to the game. My opponent played e4. Speaking of my opponent, you can see his rating. He's a little bit lower rated than me. And since this is under 1800 tournament, I expect most of my opponents will be slightly lower rated than me. So he played e4, I responded e5, he played knight f3 here, and I decided to go for petrol defense, or Russian game, as you like to call it. So knight f6 here. And here my opponent played the main line, so he just took the pawn on e5, and I think this move is perfectly fine. I kicked away his knight with d6, he retreated his knight to f3, then it was my turn to take the e-pawn, so knight takes e4 here, queen e2, so this is all according to the main line. You can see that now my knight is pinned, and the immediate threat is d3, which will win my knight if I don't do something about this. So, the only reasonable thing to do here is to play queen e7, so now my knight is no longer pinned. He played d3 now, and I just retreated by knight to knight f6. Now, the usual book move is to take my queen, because these queens are going to be exchanged one way or another in this line. So there is almost no way around it, unless someone wants to get in a much worse position. So he decided to play knight c3, which I think it's okay, not just okay, but I think this is a very fine move, because now he makes me to take his queen, and so I have to lose tempo by taking the queen, and he will develop his pieces. So I think this is very well played by my opponent so far. Queen takes c2, now I have to take, unless I will have troubles developing my pieces, and bishop takes c2. And now you can see what I was talking about. So he developed two pieces via this exchange, and in the meantime I just had to exchange queens. Okay, he is white, so he's a tempo up, but now he's 2 tempi up, because he has two pieces developed, and I don't. So I also played bishop e7. It's usual to castle short in this position, but it's not mandatory. He played the bishop to f4, developing his bishop. Okay, this is not a terrible move, but I personally wouldn't like to develop this bishop to look at the connected pawns. Right here I don't see perspective of the bishop on f4. I'm not talking about theory now, I'm just talking about some common sense, and I can be wrong here, but I wouldn't do this, because I don't see prospect of this bishop. I would develop the bishop on g5, for example. The bishop is always useful on g5, or maybe even to e3, or maybe even to d2. I think the bishop would be better on any of these squares than on f4. But okay, it's a developing move. I played castle now, just taking my king to safety, and he played long castle here, and I was a little bit surprised. I didn't expect long castle, although this is sort of book move, and the engine approves of this move. But this is not something I would personally do, because, well, the preferable way to castle is, by classical principles, is short castle, especially if you have your all three king pawns intact, like here. So I think the king would be safe here. Another thing, which also maybe I'm not right, but this is how I think. I do long castle when only when this d-file is open. So if this d-file is opened, and especially if there are queens on the board, then long castle puts your rook immediately on the d-file, and if you can get your queen to d2, it can be a very strong battery on the open or semi-open file. But since this d-file is neither opened nor semi-opened, it wouldn't be my choice. So for example, in the Scotch game or in some variants of Open Sicilian, when you have the file open, then it makes much more sense. But okay, this is not a bad move. Like I said, it's the book move, and it's also something engine approves, so I guess it's okay. I play c6 here. Okay, so this is first dubious move. So if you look at his position, he has all his pieces developed and his rooks connected. The only thing which sticks out is a little bit this king, so he has to play king b1 to finally complete his development completely. So on the other hand, I have two pieces undeveloped and my rooks are not connected. So my priority here is to develop the pieces, wherever and however. But again, I was afraid, like in some of the previous games, if you have watched, I was afraid of this knight b5 hitting my c7 pawn, and it was not so clear how to defend against this threat. So this is why I played prophylactic c6. And later, when I was thinking about this and watched with the engine, much better was some developing move. For example, rook e8 is a developing move. And now if he plays knight b5, I can respond by knight to d5. So hitting his undefended bishop. So I play this move with tempo. He has to do something about his bishop. And then I can kick away this knight, and I want to tempi in a way. So again, I was too much afraid of this b5, which is not actually a threat. So I play this prophylactic move c6, so this is another pawn move, and my pieces are undefended. So I was not very comfortable in this position, although the engine evaluates this position as roughly equal, plus 0.1 or something. He played bishop g5 now, moving his piece twice. So like I said, this justifies my evaluation that bishop to f4 was not the best move, because he first moved to f4, then he proceeded to g5. He could have played g5 immediately. But I think nevertheless this bishop is better off on g5 than it was on f4, so I think this is a slight improvement to the position. Rook e8 now. Well, again, I have two undeveloped pieces. I need to think how to develop these pieces. But I can't here, because this bishop is undeveloped. And now this makes this knight on f6 pinned, and this can be a weakness in the future. So I don't like having undefended pieces. And if you have watched the videos by international master John Bartholomew, he talks about this all the time. So if you are a little bit lower rated, and or you have troubles with blunders, with hanging your pieces, then don't have loose pieces. Don't have pieces which are not defended. Also, the John Nunn in his some of his books, he has this principle: loose pieces drop off. So if you have a loose piece, do something about it before it was too late. So you can see that my bishop here on e7 is a loose piece, and it can be further attacked. So if he puts his rook on e1 and somehow moves this bishop, then it can be, this is a weakness which can be exploited. So this is why I played rook e8. It is kind of developing move, because now I'm activating my rook, but still I have troubles developing my pieces. And still the engine thinks everything's okay, the position is equal. He plays rook h to e1 now he has both rooks centralized, and now I started to feel a little depressed, because look how great his position is. He has his rooks centralized, his knight active, his bishop is active. Okay, this bishop is maybe not the best piece in the world, but it can be easily activated just by playing, for example, d4, and he has his bishop activated. And on the other hand, I'm completely underdeveloped. But the angel still evaluates this position as a 0.0, so completely equal, probably because, well, at this particular position, he doesn't have any real plans, any real threats, and there are no apparent weaknesses in my camp. And this is one of the features of the Petrov defense, or Russian game, that black often ends up in a very solid position, even if he's not so developed, even if his pieces are not so active, his position is rock solid. Like, if you look at my position, I don't have any weaknesses. So I now finally develop my piece, so bishop f5, and he immediately attacks my bishop with knight to h4. Let me just comment for a moment this bishop to f5. I played bishop f5 so I can develop my knight later, and I don't want my knight to block my bishop. So this is why I developed first bishop then knight. And the classical principle says develop knights before bishops. And with the engine analysis, engine doesn't like this bishop f5. It doesn't hate it either, but he thinks there are better ways to develop. So the engine suggestion is knight b to d7, and then later to bring this knight to b6, and only then to develop my bishop, for example, on e6 or any other square. So maybe this was a better way to develop, but I was a little bit impatient because, like I said, I was feeling rather depressed because I'm so underdeveloped that I just wanted to get my pieces out. Like I said, it's not bad, but maybe there are better plans. Knight h4, okay, so now he attacks my undefended bishop, and I don't think this is a good move because it's just a one move threat. I can easily retreat my bishop, like I did, to bishop to e6, and now his knight is on the ring, and it's not a very good piece, and it's uncoordinated with the rest of the army. So this knight would be much better somewhere closer to center. So I don't think this move was very good. It was not catastrophic, the position is still equal according to the engine, but I wouldn't play this without any serious continuation, because he doesn't have some continuation. It's just a one move threat, and I retreat my bishop, and this is it. Okay, here I played h3, so he probably didn't want me to jump to g4 now or later, and then to make pressure on f2 pawn and so on. So this is some kind of prophylactic move. Position is still equal. Knight b to d7, so I finally develop my other piece. And well, you can see now why the plan to maneuver the knight on b6 and then developing the bishop was better, because this bishop now doesn't have many available squares, and you will see this in the next move. So he now played f4. I don't particularly like this move. I think this is this move should have been prepared better, in my opinion, because this pawn is rather lonely here, and it's not coordinated with other pieces. But okay, this is some kind of attempt to take the initiative, and now I have to seriously think about this. And this is the first critical position in the game. I had to consider several candidate moves and to calculate several variations. So if you would like to make this an exercise, you can pause the video now and just try to find some candidate moves in this position. What would you play, and how do you think these candidate moves would continue in the game? And then I will tell you what I saw here. Okay, so there are several candidate moves. First and most obvious is h6. But then you have to think about critical response f5. So this is one critical variation. Then another one is to play knight to d5, because now you are attacking this knight and you are also defending this bishop. This bishop is defended, but okay, you can retake with the knight if he takes immediately. Also, if you play knight to d5, then you have then you attack this bishop and this knight indirectly. So what are another possibilities? For example, you can see that this bishop can be easily trapped. So if he plays f5 in some variations and then c4, then this bishop is trapped. So one candidate move I was considering is to move my knight to b6, just to make some space for this bishop. So it can retreat if attacked. So, for example, I was looking at variation, something like knight d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, and now he can take on e7. I can take back, and now my bishop is captured. It has no available squares. So this is one variation I had, one among many, which I had to have in mind. And this is why I didn't play knight d5. Another variation was, like I said, knight to b6, so if he plays f5, and then I can just retreat my bishop, and now he can play g4, and now he's seriously starting to pawn storm my king side. So I didn't like this. So what about h6? There are two variations. So first he can take my knight, and he can push the pawn. So I calculated if he pushes the pawn on f5, then I end up winning a pawn. So all I have to do is to take the bishop. He has to take my bishop with the pawn. Then I can take his knight here, which is undefended. He has to take my knight to keep the balance, material balance, and then I can take his pawn. And now you can see that I ended up winning a pawn. So I had to calculate this, and I did, so I wasn't afraid of f5. And another thing, I had to calculate if I play h6, and then he takes my knight. So this is what I calculated. I play h6, he takes my knight, I take the knight with my bishop, hitting this knight, which is unprotected. He has to retreat his knight to f3, and then I can take his knight with my bishop, hitting the rook. He has to take my bishop, and now this pawn is free, and I can take this pawn. Okay, so this is something I calculated, and well, let me just say a few words about this. Why was I happy to win this pawn? Because even this is currently poison pawn. So if this knight wasn't here, imagine that this knight is not here. So if I would take this pawn, he can just play b3 and capture my bishop. I cannot escape with my bishop, and then he just grabs my bishop with his king. And this is the famous blunder made by Bobby Fischer in the game 1 of the World Championship with Boris Spassky. So I saw this, but I was happy because in the variation I have just shown you, this pawn, this b pawn, would capture my bishop, and then there is no b3 move because this pawn is not here, and then I can safely capture the pawn. This is what I saw at the moment. So h6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight to f3, bishop takes c3, threatening the rook, b takes c3, and bishop takes a2. This was my calculation. And this is exactly how the game went. So h6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight f3, bishop takes c3, bc3, and b takes e2. I played all these moves, so these 4 moves, like it was a bullet game, so very fast. So at this moment I calculated this variation, and once he took my my knight, I just blitzed out these moves. Okay, and this is very bad habit, and you should not do this, and good players don't do this. So good players, they calculate the variation, but then they play it slowly, and they do check and double check on every move. They don't calculate 6 moves ahead and then just blitz out these 6 moves. I mean, it can be, especially in the over-the-board tournament, it can be spectacular when you have spectators, watchers, and then you just blitz out the moves and you show everyone how smart you are and how accurate can you calculate the visualize the board and so on. But except for a show-off, it doesn't make any sense, especially if you have plenty of time. And if you can see the clock, I had 19 minutes, so I had plenty of time. No need to rush the moves. And but anyway, I did rush, and I played these moves rather quickly, and this was a losing blunder, because now he can just play c4 and trap my bishop. So this a2 pawn is still a poisoned pawn. Although there is no b pawn here to trap my bishop, he has c4, which can do exactly the same job. So he played c4 here, and I was about to lose my bishop. Okay, so what now? I can just take the pawn and give away my bishop for 2 pawns and fight for a draw. But okay, I was a little bit desperate here, but I managed to put myself together and to try to think the best way to respond. So I decided to respond by bringing my knight here. So I saw after some time that I can play knight c5 and then a4 and then use this nice whole c3, hitting several things at the same time. So this was the plan. He could have defended against these threats. It's not easy to defend. It's easy if you are engine. If you are human, it's not so easy because there are many ways black can trick white. So I played knight c5 here. He played king b2, so he went after my bishop. I played knight a4 check. And now if he takes my bishop, I can give check and attack. Okay, I'm attacking his rook, but more importantly, I'm attacking his bishop on e2, which will be attacked twice. And I will win back my piece, and I have won the pawn, so I will be the pawn up. He saw this and he played king to a3, so he didn't want me to just take the piece back. And at this point, okay, just let me say the computer evaluation. So at this point, he's plus 1.5. So if I would give my bishop for 2 pawns, he will be plus 1. And he has a little bit active position, so plus 1.5. This is evaluation. And after this, it's already 0.0, so it's completely equal. Here it is equal. And here I even have a slight advantage, minus 0.2. Okay, I did play knight c3 here. Now I'm hitting this bishop, which is attacked twice, and I'm hitting this rook. The best way to defend for white here was just to remove, to move away with his bishop. And now there are several ways this can go about, but they all end in me giving up 2 pieces for a rook. And white is still better there. So for example, one possible variation is, well, I can just take, for example, take the rook. He can take the rook back, and my bishop is still trapped. So, for example. So there are several variations, but they all end up with trading 2 pieces for a rook, and now white is slightly better here. But he didn't do this. Instead, he kind of panicked and he played the rook a1 move, and this is a losing move. The evaluation is now minus 3.5. So now this bishop is free, and so now this bishop is free. I can just take it, or I can just win another pawn before I take it. So I can take it immediately, and then he can take my bishop. But I saw that well, I can take this pawn, and if he takes, then I can take the bishop. If he doesn't take, then I can just remove my bishop away and save my bishop, and I will be pawn up in this variation. So I played bishop takes c4. So he could either try to save his bishop or to take. Anyway, I can either save my piece or take his piece. Okay, so I took bishop takes c4, he took my bishop, and now I just went for this piece, so I regain my piece, knight takes e4. And now in this position I am 2 pawns up. The computer evaluates this -4, so I have a winning position here, because endgame is, I mean, we are in the endgame, but the pawn endgame is also very, very close here, and with 2 pawns up, I am just winning. And I think in this position that he psychologically sunk. This is the feeling I have. I can be wrong, but if I would have guessed, I think that he was disappointed by this how the game turned out, because at one moment he was about to win my bishop practically for nothing, and then you have to switch your mentality to defense. So he had the chance to win my piece, and he lost the chance. And now I think that he was, at least it happens when I play. I got psychologically distressed, and I start making blunders, mistakes, and so on. So this is what happened here. So after I took the bishop, he played king b2, and he blundered another pawn. So I took the pawn, so now I'm 3 pawns up. And well, now I'm attacking his g2 pawn. He defends this pawn by knight to h4. I'm happy to trade rooks now because I'm 3 pawns up, so all I want to do is exchange pieces. Rook takes c1, and now I bring my king to the game, and also controlling this penetration squares, because when your opponent controls the file, you want to make sure that he doesn't penetrate your camp. So this was a necessary move. He now played g3, blundering another pawn. So like I said, I have a feeling that he was very much distressed at this point, that he just kept blundering pawns. So now you can see that he blundered h3 pawn. So knight takes h3, knight f5 now. Okay, now he's trying to make some threats, to fight for some initiative. So the threat is well, he can take this pawn, and then he threatens both of my pawns. And I was thinking, what is the easiest way to win here? Well, maybe not the most elegant, but the easiest way, and I decided to give these 2 pawns away. So I'm now 4 pawns ahead, so I can afford to give 2 pawns away. And if he takes these pawns, then his knight and his king will be on the queen side, and I will have my strong pawn majority and my 2 pieces on the king side. So I offered the exchange, he accepted it, and now I took the rook back, and now he took my 1 pawn with check. I moved my king, and he took my other pawn. And this is what I was willing to give, so I will give him 2 pawns just to go to the queen side, and now I have all this on the king side against his 1 pawn. And this is very easy winning, so I played f5, so always push the candidate pawn first. He played c5 here, f4. Now I'm just clearing the way. He takes f4, I take with my knight. Knight a2, so now he's attacking my c6 pawn. I just played king to d7, defending, king c3, and now I have a clear way to promotion. So h5, king c4, h4 now, king d4, and h3, king e4. I don't care about him taking the knight because I play h2 and I'm just promoting. And at this point he resigned the game. Okay, so what is the moral of the story? The thing I can learn from this game is not to blitz out the moves you calculated. So I calculated, I think it was 4 moves ahead, and I played these 4 moves very fast, and I blundered, and I should have lost the bishop, and in that case the game, I would probably lose the game, or maybe I would be able to fight for a draw. But okay, luckily my position was such that I had some very nasty threats with my knight, and it was very difficult to see all these threats and to respond accordingly. So I did manage to get my piece back. And then after I got my piece back, I think that my opponent was psychologically defeated, because he was about to win the game, and then suddenly he was in a losing situation in which he had to be one fighting for a draw, and he just became distressed, and he blundered 2 pawns, and I was already 2 pawns ahead, so I was ahead 4 pawns in the end game, and well, this was it. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found this instructive. If you like the video, please click the like button, share the video, subscribe to my channel if you don't, and by all means leave the comment below, and see you very soon. Cheers.